Welcome to Math Made Easy. Today, we're going to uncover a pretty wild story. It's about how a math book that's over 2,000 years old, full of shapes and lines, actually helped create one of the most powerful speakers in history. Kind of cool, right? Let's dive in. So think about it for a sec. Whether you're in a debate, writing an essay, or, just trying to convince your parents of something important, how do you make your point so solid that it's just completely unbreakable? We're going to call it the Lego method. See, a really strong argument isn't just one giant thought. It's built carefully, piece by piece. Each part has to lock perfectly into the next one, creating something so solid and strong that it just can't fall apart. Now, this whole idea of building unbreakable arguments, well, it was a massive problem for a very famous person way before he ever became president. Yep, we're talking about Abraham Lincoln. But this isn't the president from the history books, not yet. This was Lincoln when he was just a young lawyer. And even though he was super smart, he felt like something was missing, like he had this big secret weakness. And you can hear it in his own words. He felt totally lost. I mean, his whole job as a lawyer was to demonstrate things, but he admitted he didn't really get what that meant. How do you prove something so completely that there's zero doubt? He said it felt like trying to explain the color blue to someone who's never seen it. So just imagine you're in his shoes for a second. Your entire future depends on being able to prove things, but you feel like you just don't have the right tools. Where would you even begin to learn a skill like that? Well, his solution was not what you'd expect. Lincoln didn't grab another law book. Nope. He went back in time, over 2,000 years, and picked up a math book written by an ancient Greek thinker. He got a copy of Euclid's Elements. But here's the thing. This wasn't really about learning geometry. He wasn't interested in just triangles and circles. For Lincoln, this book was like a gym for his brain. He worked through it, not to become a math whiz, but to train his mind in pure, step-by-step logical thinking. And what he found inside was basically a 6-step recipe for any unbreakable argument. First, you state your point. Then, you lay out all the given facts that everyone agrees on. Third, you say exactly what you're going to prove. Fourth, you build the case. Fifth, you show the logic step by step. And finally, you state your conclusion. It's a perfect blueprint. Think about it this way. It's kind of like coding a video game, right? Your starting points, what Euclid called axioms, are like the basic lines of code. Now, what happens if even one of those first lines of code has a bug? It doesn't matter how awesome the graphics or the rest of the game is, the whole thing is going to crash. That foundation has to be absolutely perfect. So Lincoln totally masters this system. But how in the world did he use lessons about geometry in real life? Well, he started arguing like a mathematician, especially when he was fighting against his biggest challenge, the argument for slavery. See, Lincoln noticed that most people argued with pure emotion. Loud voices, personal attacks, just shouting opinions. But Lincoln, he chose a totally different way. The way he learned from Euclid. He'd start with simple facts that nobody could disagree with, and then he'd build his case, one logical step at a time, until he cornered you with a conclusion that was just impossible to deny. And one of his favorite tools, his secret weapon, was a technique straight out of geometry called proof by contradiction. The idea is actually pretty simple. You take your opponent's argument and show that if you just follow its own logic, it completely destroys itself. All right, let's walk through how it works. Lincoln would start by just stating his opponent's idea, almost like it's a math problem. Step 1, lay out the premise. Let's say it is right for one person to enslave another. Okay, so for step 2, he'd question the logic, just like a mathematician. He'd ask, all right, on what basis? What's the reason? Is it because their skin is a different color? Or maybe because you think you're smarter? And boom, here comes the trap. This is where he'd show the contradiction. If the reason is skin color, then anybody with a lighter or darker skin tone could use that same exact logic to enslave you. If the reason is being smarter, then anyone who's more intelligent than you gets the right to enslave you. See? The argument completely collapses on itself. The first idea has to be wrong. And Lincoln even said it himself in his debates. He basically argued that you can't disprove a logical fact, like say that the angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees, just by insulting the guy who came up with it. You can't win an argument against pure logic by just calling Euclid a liar. The math, the logic, it just stands on its own. So, what's the big takeaway for us here? This is way more than just a cool history lesson. This is a toolkit that you can use for your own mind right now. So, here it is, your Euclidean toolkit. First, always start with facts everyone can agree on. Second, build your argument one clear step at a time, just like we said with the Legos. Third, test your own ideas. Do they actually make sense, or do they lead to some kind of contradiction? And fourth, remember that clear logic, not a loud voice, is your real superpower. So I'm going to leave you with this question. Lincoln used this power of demonstration, this logical thinking, to change an entire country. So what's an idea that you really care about, that you are going to choose to prove piece by logical piece? Please like, subscribe, Math Made Easy.